It's a good idea to periodically remove old items from your mailbox, especially if your email account has a size limit. You can delete things, or you can move them to a personal folder where they're stored locally in an Outlook data file. But if you don't want to take the time to clean up your mailbox manually, you can let Outlook do the work for you by setting up Auto Archive. Here's how. Click the File tab and Options. Click Advanced and Auto Archive Settings. Auto Archive is similar to exporting to a file, except it runs automatically and uses an aging period to determine what to archive. You'll see how that works in a minute. Also, exporting copies files, where auto-archiving moves them, so they no longer exist in their original location. First, turn on auto-archive by checking Run Auto-Archive Every and entering a time period. Then decide if you want to check Prompt before auto-archive runs. Next, decide what Outlook does as it runs auto-archive. In most cases, you'll want to check Delete Expired Items. And make sure Archive or Delete Old Items is checked. If you want to be able to quickly access your archived items, check Show Archive Folder in Folder List. Next, you decide the default folder settings, starting with the aging period. The default is 6 months, which means any mailbox item older than 6 months will be archived. You can change that if you want, and choose months, weeks, or days. Finally, you choose whether to move the old items to an Outlook data file or permanently delete them. In most cases, you'll choose the first option, and then click Browse to find a location and enter a name for the archive file. Click OK. Finally, you click Apply these settings to all folders now, then OK, and OK. Now, the default settings are applied to all folders in your mailbox. The only folders that aren't archived are your contact folders, because it typically doesn't make sense to archive contacts based on an aging period. After you determine global default settings, you can modify settings for individual folders. For example, let's say you don't want to archive deleted files. Right-click Deleted Items and click Properties. Then click the Auto Archive tab. Because we applied the default settings to all folders, this option is selected. Archive items in this folder using the default settings. But if you don't want to archive deleted items, you can select Do Not Archive Items in this folder. Or you can select Archive this folder using these settings if you want more options. For example, you can enter a different aging period for a folder. Maybe you want deleted items archived every month. Finally, you can decide what Outlook does with the archived items. Move them to the default archive folder, move them to a different data file, maybe you want to save the items but just not with the others, or permanently delete them. We'll choose that option. Notice that this is different from simply not archiving the folder. When you're done, click OK. Now, the first time Auto Archive runs, the archived items are moved from your mailbox to the archive file, which then appears in the folder list as a personal folder. If archiving doesn't appear to be working on a corporate email account, check with your IT administrator. A retention policy may be applied to your company mail.